Hello, everybody. Sorry to keep you waiting. I've been watching you all have a chat amongst yourselves, which is perfect. We finally have our guest, Dr. Catherine Bair. Welcome, Catherine.
Hey. Well, thank you very much for having me.
So this is our virtual Breach Point event. If you've attended one of these before, you may have attended one of our in-person events. Catherine has been on the panel of a couple of those, I think, so far, where we discuss all things taking companies to the US, what that involves, all of the different hurdles that you might need to go through, things that Aussie founders do well, what we don't do well. We have no better person. We have a lot of amazing guests around this topic, but Catherine is definitely well versed in all aspects of this and has a lot of lived experience. So, Catherine, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself.
Okay, good, because my bio reads a little bit squirrely. So I started out my career in medicine. So I was a biomedical biochemist. I used to develop gene therapies for a living. Actually, working in that company got me into defense. War was an old agency, no longer exists. They were doing a lot of work in biofuels. Biofuels and the genetic modules we had actually were a pretty good match. That got me into the Pentagon of all places. I had no experience in DoD, no military background. No one in my family was in the military. But the Pentagon needed some nerds, and I was one of them. And I was very good in chem bio. From the Pentagon, ended up doing a lot of really crazy things. That takes, that's a happy hour story. From there, I went to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. That's proper nerd science in DoD S&T. I worked a couple different science and tech divisions and had a hell of a good time. I also ran 5I for the agency. So I've been in Australia a number of times. And when AUKUS Pillar Two was being launched and the Piper Initiative was being drafted, it was about 2002, and Scott Morrison had opened up your borders. So I came on down because I knew that there was going to be a massive gap between the industries of our countries. I know how hard it is for them to connect across the Pacific, and I know how hard it is for Govy to do anything about it. So I am here in your country last 4 years as a complete rando in industry, doing what I can to connect the defense industries to accelerate some capability development that will keep our warfighters safe from as many things as we possibly can muster.
I don't think you are a complete rando. We are very grateful to have access to you and all of your experience. And I love that you didn't have the defense background, but you had the technical and, as you call it, the nerd experience, which, we're seeing a lot more of it, which is fantastic. And we have a lot of capability here. And the way that you've been able to bring those two worlds together and showcase what other people can do. In that meantime, we've had Sean join us. How you going there, Sean? I think you're out and about somewhere in the world.
Yeah,
Sean's dialing through your.
Here in Seattle in preparation for the Australia-US World Cup match tomorrow here in Seattle.
Nice one. So for those that aren't aware, Sean is our US venture partner based in the States, and he is the person that we would plug you into and connect you to should you be working with us in any way, looking to take your company to the States or introduce or do a trip overseas. We are more than happy to plug people in. Sean is also super connected, and Sean and Catherine have a professional history together, and usually when they're on the panel, I don't really need to say much. So, Catherine, today's discussion in terms of breaking into the US market, what is probably the misconception that you hear that you would love to set the record straight, if we can kick off there?
Oh, I think for both countries, honestly, it is who actually has the funding and who actually has the authority to commit it. I would say for small businesses in the US, because it's a big cottage industry and there's lots of knowledge and lots of experience around, they get, their hand gets held through the whole process. They have lots and lots of Sherpas. For the Australians, it's very, very few, very, very far between, and understanding what that whole world looks like. Because here in Australia, you've got two major centers that do funding, and that's it. In America, everybody and their grandmother's got money, and everybody and their grandmother can possibly get hold of funding. There's lots of different ways to spend it, lots of different ways people go about actually finding people to spend money on, and then carrying them through the whole entire process from a really nascent idea in the back of a napkin all the way through something that gets fielded. And I would definitely point out Pillar Two and Piper as two of the biggest misconceptions across both countries when it comes to funding. AUKUS Pillar Two does not have funding behind it. I know all the people straight up to the 3-star level on the DoD side and the people of the state who are the AUKUS staffers. There's never been Pillar Two money. People think there is money somewhere, but it's not there yet. It's coming. It's on the way. Piper is the other initiative that got started by Hegseth in last January, and it's the Partnership for Indo-Pac Industry Resilience. Great initiative. I love everything about it, but there's no money behind it. There's actually two Australian companies. I won't name them because they've gone through an absolute washing machine the last year as the US government is trying to figure out where does funding come from, who's going to be the contracting office and the officers, what does it look like to run through that process, and all the things that go behind it. So AUKUS Pillar Two and Piper are by far they confuse the most people. And I say people have, easily all kinds of stories about it, but I'm here to tell you from the top that there is no money behind it right now. There's the AUKUS challenge that's put on by DIU, ASCA, and DSTL, but that's each country funding their own country's companies. But there's nothing terribly AUKUS about it. They don't actually work together to do anything on those lines. So when I talk to Australians about what the US economy looks like in the DoD science and tech side and on the research and engineering side, it's a giant cobweb of people and trying to figure out which person has money right then, which person has a priority that's in line with what you are trying to offer, and can that person actually get money out anytime soon. A lot of it is just knowing who's who in the zoo. These are all my old colleagues. So I was the person you used to write proposals to. I was the person who had whole PM planned and went to hell the second the fiscal year started. I worked in joint agencies, so we had to provide capabilities to all the services, all the co-coms, even the three-letter agencies, and there's kind of in between parts of the DoD and Homeland. So there's even when I was working there, sometimes I had a problem trying to figure out who still got money. There are little tips, cues, and such that I'm familiar with, and I can kind of suss out, okay, this is where there's a lot of money, there's a little bit of money. This is where it's kind of money that is going to be spent on something that you've got because of its maturity level, because of where it's going. The nice thing is, you can say to Australians, is that there is a lot of money to be had, lots of ways to get hold of it, and you can ask 7 different people for money at the same exact time. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody does it. You chuck spaghetti against the wall, see how many strands actually stick. It's like going to like mom, dad, auntie, uncle, cousin, neighbor, asking everybody for money and so you can get you into the movies that evening. So it is big, it is complicated, it runs really fast and it stops on a dime. And when these Australians go to conferences, I feel bad for a lot of them because especially military from the US will rock up to one of them and say, your stuff's cool, I want to buy it, give me like 3,000. And then the Aussie goes home, he thinks he's got this great big sale, thinks he's got a contract, and then find out that was, just absolute vaporware because that military didn't have any money at all. The military's job is to be a requirements bearer. Their job is to say, I don't have, I need, or the adversary's got something better because I saw it in the field. And it's someone's job, well, my old job was to go make that capability for them. So there's a big misconception, I think, when the Australians go into the US and they go to these big events about who they're talking to, what that person's real role is when it comes to spending money, and then how to follow up with the person who actually has the money.
Yeah.
So it is, it's a big game, quite honestly, when it comes down to it.
Because there's so much in this, I'm going to keep asking questions along the way to help unpack some of these things. What you said there's 2 parts. I want to ask one about when you said it's normal for everyone. There's a lot of people asking multiple places, like you could ask 7 people for money at the same time. And then the second question I want to touch on is, how do we know the difference? If you're at a conference and somebody says we want the thing, if that's not the truth, and if somebody was genuine, what's the difference when it is genuine? What's that going to look like? What level of conversation do you have? Is there actually contracts written at the time, or is it still word of mouth? How do you, as a newbie going into that space, know the difference? But if we go back to the multiple areas of funding question first, then we'll tackle that one second.
Yeah, you can apply to a lot of places for funding. There are tenders that go out on, well, I call it the street, but it's really an online site. And you go there and all the major labs, all the major services, the co-coms themselves, anything that ends in an X, so your SoftWorks, your AFWorks, your ERDIC everybody loves the end X. You can go to all of them and you can either, put forward one technology, 5 technologies. It all depends on whatever they're asking for. But until you get money from somebody, you can ask anybody you want. The beauty about working on the number of vehicles that an Australian is able to apply to is that there's no restriction. The restrictions are things that are different that you couldn't apply to, so I won't bother with that one. But we have one Aussie, and I will 100% put Tony on the spot. So Information Power Institute of Australia is the founder is my friend Tony Allen. I think we put forward 10 different white papers at this point to 10 different places. A lot of them start with Air Force, a lot of them start with Army, but you add a couple letters on there, and all of a sudden you're in a completely different space.
Okay.
So there are parts of the Army that does nerdy stuff. There's parts of the Army that does unpack, that's DEFCON. There's parts of Army that does really hardcore warhead on forehead. We want a prototype tomorrow kind of work. Same with Air Force, Navy, Marines, SOCOM. A lot of people go to Soft Weeks. They're quite familiar with the Special Operations Forces. They've got multiple different pockets in there as well. So you look at any big part of a service and you will find probably 15 or more places that have money. They have different flavors and colors of money, just like the Australian government has. I can do early stuff, mid stuff, late stuff. It's good for a year, it's good for 5 years, what have you. So there's all these options. It's great, but it's confusing.
So
So
do you need to disclose that
Mhm.
you have also applied to other areas? Or you when you go in for something,
No,
you are entirely focused on that, you don't need to disclose where else you've been applying or where your interest is?
no, until someone gives you money, you are free to ask everybody. And you can't take money for the same thing, so please don't do anything illegal, guys. And when you apply to these, a lot of times they ask you what kind of funding got you to where you are today. That makes a difference in the United States. For Australians, if ASCA funded you, if you got it through the Defense Innovation Hub or well, it's gone now. I've got through one of the other channels. That's fine. It's not American money, so it really doesn't much matter to them. There's different reasons why it matters if you're an American company, but that's about all they'll ask is where did money come from before. Sometimes they'll ask a little bit about company viability if they're looking at a commercial aspect to whatever you're doing, but otherwise you have to ask around.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then for who actually has the money, this is a fun one. And I would say, as having been the person with money, I rarely ever called myself out in public because I
Mm,
didn't want to be accosted. I didn't want to like not sleep the next 3 days. And also, if I was going around trying to find information at a conference, anyone who's been to the U.S. has seen these conferences have got hundreds and hundreds of booths to go to. So you grab business cards and pamphlets as fast as you can, you tuck them in your notebook, and you run away as fast as you can. I would send a lot of my staff out to the conferences. I had a whole outreach team that was really, really good about saying, our office has funding. Here's our generic office email address. And, we're not going to give away names because people can find you online. So it's difficult for an Australian to have a conversation with somebody who may be a contractor who cannot possibly commit with government funds, or a military person. Their job is to ask for things, and which is good. We want them to ask for stuff because they're at the front lines and it's their lives we're trying to save. Sometimes it's somebody who is in an office that may have the authority to spend money, but that doesn't actually have any money.
yep.
Pillar Two and Piper, good examples there. And then even places like DARPA. DARPA is a very big agency. They are so incredibly well funded. I've always been very jealous of them. There's an Aussie who's in DC right now. He's listening. I won't call you out. But he had a meeting with DARPA about a program, and he's like, "But it's a program. There should be money behind it, but there's not. They've got this challenge instead." And I was like, don't worry about the words. They may have the authority. It may be part of the budget, but they don't have money behind it. They just don't have money to spend. They have the
Right.
authority to spend it. If they had $1 in the bank account, they'd probably give it to you. But it's hard to figure that out unless you start asking very probing questions with just kind of the right words. And so I said, "Hey, ask him if money has been allocated to this program." And he's like, "Okay, write that down. Write that. The word allocated means something." Or if they've got, ask them what their budget is this fiscal year or next fiscal year, and ask them, has that already been, do you have that funding now that's available to be obligated? So all these cute little acquisition terms you can use to kind of suss out, one, if the person on the other side really isn't the person you want to be talking to because they don't know what any of the words mean. If they know what the words mean, they know what you're getting at. And eventually, they may be forthcoming and say, "Oh, we've got $5 million in the budget right now. We're looking at, funding a number of efforts," or "We've got 5 million, we've got one shot." And that's when it becomes very, very competitive. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're not. There's a lot of places where their boss said they had a budget, but the boss took the budget away. That happens all the time. And so
Yeah.
there's lots of, as a govy, lots of little games you play to try to hide it, try to push it off, try to spend it really fast.
Mm,
But it really just takes having a really deep expertise about how money moves around between the different offices, the different program managers, and the different SESs and agency heads and the like. There's a couple little tricks you can use as the person asking for money to kind of broaden the range of dollars and colors you can get.
mm.
That's all very technical, but there's a couple. It's just tough. It's just having a deep understanding. That's a lot of what I have. A lot of mentees across the different programs and a lot of companies I work with. And if they start getting into that, I ghostwrite emails for them. And I was like, ask them these words or have this conversation and dig into it. Or I just go around and ask my friends from the U.S. see if they can dig up some information for us.
Yeah. The conferences, this comes up in each of the sessions that we do, and most of the other events as well, that we talk about the importance of it, going to the conferences, meeting the people, being seen, make the connections. As somebody who has had money before and is actively looking for those companies where you have different remit, obviously, each time you're looking, how important is it for Aussie founders to have a stand opposed to being on, say, one of the Australian stands or just walking around meeting people? Like, how What is the likelihood of finding them if they're just attending and being active in their networking or actually setting up as a stand?
Yes, this is a good one. So I've gone to a couple of the conferences with my mentees who are in the pavilion areas or going up there with teams of Trans Australia and Australia to do a great job shepherding them through. They get a little bit physically hamstrung. And one year I went with SciTech and we left a general at the stand the entire time
Yeah.
because Daniel and I were running around trying, meeting up with people and trying to get him in front of as many human beings as possible to have conversations. And some companies find it sounds really good. I had a booth, but I got one person staying there and someone else is going to be running around and I hope they get me coffee. So it kind of comes down to what you feel you can accomplish for the first conference you go to. I always say, just get a booth. Just go there because it's almost a safe place to be. Americans are going to come over to the Australian stand because they're super smart and have the most amazing espresso. So they bring people to it. TD does a really good job going out and finding their American friends and having them walk through. The military is always walking through. So I think it's good your first go just to have a stand. And it's also more important than that, I think, to have a good elevator pitch. And this is something that actually Defense Trailblazer, the accelerator program, does a really good job doing, is teaching people to get down to that one sentence. And you have a one sentence about the problem statement you're going after and hope it resonates with whoever you're speaking with. And then you have one sentence about what your solution, honest to goodness, really, really is. No blowing smoke, no making it look pretty, no fancy words and stories and blah, blah, blah. It says one sentence, one sentence. And that person you're talking to, you'd be like, oh, that's 100% not my gig. I don't know what you just, I'm going to waste your time. Or they'll say, oh, hey, so you're in this space. Tell me about what you've got. Tell me about your capability. Tell me where you are in the maturation stage and kind of tell me what you're looking for. So it's those one sentence, one sentence. And I say, because there's a lot of people running around. You've been to AUSA, how many thousands of people are there? Yeah. And
So
if
many.
they're a govy, if they look govy-ish, if it looks like someone wants to talk to them, or they're roaming the stand areas asking questions, the fastest you can get to their area of interest, all the better. And they'll stick around, they'll talk to you.
Mm,
Because nobody, and from someone who had everybody cost me at all times and reading proposals and listening to pitches, if I don't know within 2 sentences what your problem you're trying to address and what specifically do you have, I will stop listening. I'll
yeah.
smile nicely, but I'll stop listening. We just had the 10x commercial exercise through Defense Trailblazer yesterday, and that was almost always the first comment was, first sentence, please tell me this. Second sentence, please tell me that. Because it's not normal. It's not a typical Aussie way of talking to people. And defense is just very different. And you're looking at a very, very tiny bit of time you've got with somebody. Even if you're literally walking behind them, you're in the line at the cafe, you have that half a second. I always tell them, pretend you walk into an elevator with a three-star general, you got one floor to go in the Pentagon. That's your only shot. Figure out what you need to say.
It completely gives a different spin. Completely different spin on the elevator pitch. And you're right, it's not natural. We want to tell you the story and what, as an connect with you first and then share how we came up with it. Whereas we're just getting left behind in some of those earliest interactions. I'm sure, Sean, you've experienced this as well.
Absolutely. And I think Catherine is right about the elevator pitch, being able to sort of like hone in on what's truly important to them. And I apologize for being tardy to the conversation. Yet it's also really important to pitch solutions as opposed to widgets. I think one of the things, and this is actually something that's endemic with, very bright founders on both sides of the Pacific, they want to talk about how great their widget happens to be, yet they don't necessarily map it back to solving a priority problem. And the way to find traction within Department of War, the intelligence community, is solve priority problems as opposed to trying to sell technologies. And I can't, I apologize if we've covered this, but the Department of War does not integrate anything. They buy solutions. Doctor, thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So and I'll say for the early guys, it's kind of tough. And so I was in an agency where we had 6.1 money. That meant like back of a napkin. I think I can bend the laws of physics and make this happen. So there are some very, very early things where you say, I think it's going to be able to do this for you. They may not have an entire capability as all mapped out, or they may be a supporting or enabling piece of it. So we have people who make microchips. Like that chip's not doing anything by itself. It's simply moving data a whole lot faster. It's less heat, less power, etc. So things like that may not be the warhead on the forehead that some military guy is looking for, but it is something that makes that more possible and be able to function more effectively. So when Sean talks about capability, don't put in your mind it's a widget's a thing. It's not like, a mouse that you're going to use
Yep.
to scroll around. It could be, a better laser pointer inside that mouse. So sometimes if you've got one of those very broad ubiquitous type of things that can help out a lot of different scenarios, pick one. And if you can tell what service someone's from, pick one that matters to them. Like, don't tell a Navy guy about, something they're going to do in a helicopter, because they're probably not going to be in one. They're more likely to be in a ship somewhere, more likely to care about maritime and littorals and the like. So it's important to show that, yeah, and I hate to say it, I had one general tell me one day, and he just walked up to me in the middle of a meeting, and he's like, "You need to stop talking." I was like, "Why?" He goes, "It's never about the science." He just kind of got in my face, and I was like, "Oh my God, but it is." And he's like, "No, never, ever, ever is about the science." He goes, "That guy over there might be killed tomorrow unless you give him something that works. Tell me what this
Mm.
damn thing does." And that was like my second year in the Pentagon, and I was like, "I've been scared straight. Now I get it." You actually have to tell them what. And so I tell a lot of Australians in general, I was like, "It's a really cool tech, but just give me a layman's knuckle dragger version of what this damn thing does." Like, a
Yeah.
pen doesn't save the world. A pen just spreads ink on whatever you put it on, that kind of a
Mm.
thing. So I think, yeah, what Sean's getting at is very true. I would just caution, don't make it sound like it's going to save the war, or end the war, or, do all these great, amazing things. It does a specific, very important and critical thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't always have to be Pillar Two. It could be like paint that doesn't rust. There's things like that are out there as well. But yeah, I think I definitely agree with what Sean's got to say about that.
Now, I've got a question here. And just a reminder to everyone who is listening, you are able to ask questions as we go. Don't feel you need to wait to the end or anything. If you think of something, drop it into the chat and I will have a read of it and then pass it on to Catherine or Sean. So Jake has asked, Kat, what's your top recommendation or top three to a new entrant to the defense industry coming in cold from any adjacent sectors or that has no background in this space that's thinking about expanding to the US and doesn't know where to start?
Geez, yeah, I would say there's a lot of people in Defense Trailblazers, so this is great because, yeah, I mentor them. And a lot of it is just know you don't know most everything you're about ready to get into and find experts who can help. And so there's a lot of people I talk to well outside Defense Trailblazer who are just like, "Oh, I want to get into the US." And I always say, "Hold your horses. So here's what it's like working with the US. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to go down." And I say, take all the expert advice on board you can. So people who've done it already, there's a whole heap of Australians that have now kind of started to dip their toe in working with the US or trying to get into that US system. Talk to them and get kind of their personal take on it. I run workshops out of the Allied Industry Collaborative Network that I set up with a couple of my mates. And that's what we talk about is, here are the misconceptions we've heard before. Here's what the reality is like. And here's all the things you're going to have to consider. And I will say a good 80% of the Aussies are like, "Yeah, check you, done, going to commercial, I'm out." I'm like, that's fine. If you can't hack just a simple conversation, or if the conversation makes you very, very concerned about what you're doing, then please go do commercial. Don't waste your time over in defense. But if you can get a good idea of how that other country's defense system works, or even go online and read stuff. I mean, LinkedIn is chock full of information. From some of it's good, some of it's not so good, but you kind of get a picture of what that defense industry looks like. And then there are very basic little things you can start to do. Like, you can go on your computer right now and start getting these little, I call them tickets to play, and that will help you at least look like a business that knows what they're doing, and actually be able to being allowed you to apply to a lot of these funding opportunities, because you've got to have a couple little things in place. And make sure you don't have a couple of things like all of your kits from China. Probably not going to go too well in the Department of Defense. Or if you've got a lot of foreigners on your team from countries that make a lot of people a little bit squeamish. So there are little things like that that you suss out right away in a hurry if your company has no chance of being able to work with the defense, or if you've got a little bit of a chance, and kind of how much can you stomach going into a completely different ecosystem and having to work amongst that. And Sean does a lot of work with companies that are setting up in the United States. There's a whole bunch of people out there to help you, but everybody has kind of their own little niche. And it's like, "Ooh, who's the person I should trust, and who's something I can afford? And what kind of timeline am I looking at?" So there's all these questions that are going to end up coming up. So I would say, always find a friend, find somebody that knows a little bit more than you do, and as best you can, listen to Beacon Zone panels, come to the conferences and talk to people. If you can, Team Defense Australia is always taking companies out around the world. I mean, it's an amazing resource here in this country. It's
Mm.
like, just have a crack at it.
Yeah, look, it's definitely the question that comes up all the time. Even though we might say it every event, every panel, every video, whatever we're doing, there's always new people coming into the sector. And we hope that there's going to continue to be even more coming into the sector. So this is a message that we will say on repeat. There's not a one-stop shop though to find it. So it's more, and I know that plugging into say your local industry network groups, obviously Jake on the Beaten Zone team is a great leader of a lot of that ecosystem development, the events, continuously sharing what's on and where, and getting in to meet those people, because it's only when you ask the questions that the next door open or the next introduction can be made, but none of them can be made if you sit behind the computer. You can do your research, but I think you still have to get out there. Do you agree with physically going, connecting, and plugging in?
100%, yeah. And back to your point that nobody knows everything. If someone ever tells you they do, run. Don't just
Yeah.
walk. Run with that person because they're probably looking to bilk you for a lot of money and they're going to send you down a bad path, or they're going to send you to people that they're making money off of doing these things. So yeah, it is. It's a lot of person to person trust. Kind of figure out, do I know this person? That's why I like physically being in this country because I'm becoming a mate of a mate, mate of a mate's mate. And they're like, oh, I've heard of her before. She's not an awful person. I talked to people about Sean. And I was like, Sean's been here and he's working with these people and he's doing all this great stuff. Like he's not a fly by night guy. He's in it to, to help you out and to make sure that you're successful because your success is good for both our countries, all of our war fighters, but also the work that they're doing so they can continue to keep doing that and then do that in a bigger and bigger sense. So it's a lot of, yeah, like you do reviews, you go on TripAdvisor and find out if a hotel's good. Keep doing the same thing to the people
Yep.
that you talk to who say they know some things.
That is really good advice. And each time I look at Sean, he's got a different background. So I'm wondering if Sean's actually changing his background or he's moving around somewhere. He's
He
moving
wears
around the
polo.
venues.
The
Stay
only
on
thing I
as
just
long as you
wanted to
can.
add to Kat's question or answer is that, I know that the primes can actually
Yeah, thanks, Sean. We've talked about that before, actually. I think it was one of our podcast episodes recently as the primes being a force multiplier and using that as a strategy as well, which is a whole other topic and one it might be interesting to actually go into it deeper. But I have a question here from Andrea. What should Aussie businesses know about the National Security Program and any specific security considerations to the US defense industrial base?
I'm assuming this is for data exchange because there's security is big. there's lots and lots of implications there. Well, I mean, ITAR, EAR, SAHR is in Canberra. They do a really good job with this. There's a bunch of US companies and Australian companies that work together all the time. A lot of my friends who were doing AUKUS and ITAR before was cool. They are connected really well into Australia. So I think there's a lot of resources that are there. Happy to make recommendations. On the other side is like proper security clearances and being able to get into classified programs and black folders and the like. So when I was a Govy and if I had something that I knew was going to be classified, I would chunk it across into like 7 different little pieces and I would never put the what we can't do out there because that's a classified piece. It was simply like, hey, today we can do 20 feet. See how far you could possibly get. In the back of my mind, I know we need 70 feet because the Russians can do 60 feet or something silly like that. There's a lot of people that do that now because they realize if they cut off the entire unclassified part of the DoD ecosystem, that's a huge amount of innovation, especially coming out of the universities. And unis here are absolutely phenomenal. There's some decent ones in the States as well. And trying to pull the talent and the expertise out of there is impossible if everything's classified. So I will say that and the DoD also has hand slapped for making things too classified. I worked at an agency that would classify like when lunch was. I mean, it was bad. And so that's actually illegal these days. So there's a big push to get things off a classified system if they don't need to be, and to be able to make it more fair. So a lot of it has to do with fairness, just effectiveness, finding all those good rando 20-person companies in America, which is micro, not small, it's micro in America, but there's still a lot of good coming out of there because people retired from military or retired from their big primes and decided to go on their own. So there are lots and lots of opportunities out there that never require you having a clearance. There's a lot of things that you can contribute to in the early stages. It may get black folder down the road, but you've done your contribution. You've gotten your experience, you've gotten your funding. You've probably also made a few friends along the way, and you can contribute to other programs. And if you do a really good job, especially as Australians coming into the US, it's still kind of new. Back when America was all about the CENTCOM region, we're not going to partner with Taliban to create technologies. That's not a thing. We are going to partner with the Aussies and PACOM. And that's what everybody's focused on now is the Indo-Pac region. So there is a culture change in America, and they're really trying to pull up all the good ideas and expertise from Australia, bring it into the US ecosystem. And so you can do a lot of sharing between the countries. So many of them have gotten cluey about it and said, hey, let's just not make it all classified. Let's put out there bits and parts and pieces that can be worked on by foreign partners. Or ask them what they've got. And there's a lot of requests for information out there. There's doing a tech landscape. And I always tell the Aussies, apply, send in all your good stuff, because if it's good, they'll send out an unclassified request for proposal, request for tender. Then you can probably see yourself in it, apply to it, and you have a really good shot of doing that. So the first Aussies that are going to crack into the system in a big fashion, especially when Pillar Two's got funding, the Piper's got funding, they're going to get big political wins on both sides. So I think there has definitely been a push to make sure everybody can come play to the party. And if need be, need to do something classified, then go talk to Sean. He'll get you into the US, do your headquarters, get everything sorted. They can, take care of everything after that because I don't do that part.
Well, so to that end, I mean, I come back to the primes being a great way of actually helping you get through that process because they have the facility clearances, they have the relationships. So, a couple of things I'll offer up is that one of the things that we did at the Defense Innovation Unit on behalf of our government customers was obfuscate the actual end use case, right? Because most classified use cases actually have an unclassified analog. And so if you could focus in on that unclassified analog, the government can go ahead and classify it to Kat's point a little bit later when they actually need to go ahead and put target actually on, the ground. So there's that. Also, too, if the government really wants your capability, they will figure out a way of reading you into something, right?
So I've got another question here. How would you suggest dealing with FOCI? Is it FOCI? FOCI. FOCI. And do you see it as an issue? That's from Judd.
I don't think it's much of an issue for Australians. China, yes. India, probably. Some of the other Asian countries, it's a disclosure. I mean, 100%. This is who created this code or who we built our technology off of. A lot of the Aussies that I'm meeting have done it by themselves. There's a lot of sovereign capability where they've bootstrapped it, borrowed from the bank of mom and dad, do whatever you need to do to be able to bring that in yourself and move that forward. And this is part of the, is my business defense ready? Well, if your business employs a lot of people from countries that aren't very nice to us, then yeah, you're probably not going to make it in defense. If all your stuff comes from bad countries or there's a logistics issue. So contested logistics, everyone talks about that. It's why we're getting rid of everything Chinese out of the supply chain. And some of you just don't know what's in there. We spend a lot of money in the government trying to do non-destructive interrogation to see what might be in there. But even if it's like a phosphate powder, it still has to come from a country that's contested, that we don't have a very good relationship with. So that movement of the goods could be a big problem. So I think that there's, as much as you can, sovereign or friendly nations, Germany, Finland, Scotland, super happy countries, Canada, New Zealand, lots of places you can get things from if we don't have it here.
In regards to all of the events that happen all year round, is there a, say if someone was going to be traveling over to the States to attend some events, is there a better time of the year to plan to be there for a few months? If you can't do all of them, what would you suggest as someone new, some of the key ones to get involved with?
It depends. It depends kind of what's going on in the government, because if it's a normal everyday government cycle, which has not happened in absolutely forever. I think my first year in defense, it worked. Our budget gets passed. We have money October 1st. We start slowly cranking things out about 3 weeks later. So there's a whole kind of a break point between about June-ish, July-ish, when the acquisition office is shut down. You've done all your program planning and everything's nice and sorted, big old red bow on there. And you've got July, August, and September where nothing's going to happen. Just, people are going to perform, they're going to do their thing. And the first part of October tends to be a little bit of a fluffy period. So AUSA happens at a great time. It's October, it's DC, it's no longer a swamp. There's not a whole lot of other events going on. So the city is kind of available for the conference to take it over. And there's also Special Operations Forces Week that happens in Tampa. They kind of bounce out around the year depending on what's happening that year in the world. So that can move a little bit. That tends to be a good place to go to just because there are two combatant commands that sit in Florida, and every military person loves going to Tampa to go just have fun for the week. We'll admit that. Coast in Hawaii is another one. Everybody wants to go to Hawaii to go hang out. It's a really easy trip from here. It's only 8, maybe 9 hours in plane. So I love going to Hawaii. Hate going to New York. So there are a couple of big conferences that happen, but they're massive, and they kind of you get very, very overwhelmed. You're one of literally 10,000 or 20,000 people. I think this last AUSA was 28,000 people. That's the number of people in the Pentagon in a day. But it's still a lot of people to deal with at a conference. But then there are other ones that happen in Texas, a bunch of really small, very intimate one-to-one kind of conferences where you actually come out of there potentially with a partner, with some more information on the way forward. It's very much of a learning experience for the Aussies. So it's not so much the time of year when there's going to be a lot of US roaming around because it's a fun conference. I would look at, what do you want to get out of it? If you just want to do a big blush over everything, go to AUSA. That's a big blush one. Soft Week, big blush one. If you want to get into something very specific, there's a conference literally every day in America. I remember going for the conference sheet across the country, and I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I spent a lot of time at conferences. But so it's what do you want to get out of it? Is there some specific area you're looking into, some specific service you really, really want to go talk to? You would just pick conferences and meetings and other things that are very specific to their world or that they're hosting. So it's more about the function of the conference, I think, than it is time of year. But there are some that best time of year because of most people that you can definitely tap into.
Now, there's another question for you, Kat. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for Australian startups, technology-wise, over the next 12 to 18 months? If people were thinking about what problems to look for to solve, so let's say they haven't started something yet, and create solutions for, what would those problems or opportunities be from your perspective? So anything that you're seeing a need for, trends, whatever.
There's a million and one requirements at all times. Everybody needs everything. One area that's kind of near and dear to my heart that has been kind of neglected a lot over the last few years is material science. There's so much you can do in the material space to improve the effectiveness, the efficiency, the stealthiness of a lot of different technologies that are going out there. So everybody, their grandmother's doing drones, get into drones, fine, because someone's going to buy it. There's so much money being pumped around there. But there's also a lot of work going into just doing it smarter. And a lot, sometimes it comes down to machine learning. So your basics, whatever data sets really look like. And so everyone's been working on data sets since, you were doing convoluted neural networks and I was funding it, over 10 years ago and DARPA was working on it. And there's always something a little bit better that can be done there. So I've seen a lot of people recently, we went through the whole get a lot of data, get a lot of synthetic data, do this kind of data, doing this kind of data, we need chips and da, da, da. So NVIDIA's done a lot for the chip space in order to be able to process that data so much faster. But that is a material in the end, end of the day. There's a lot of work going on in communications. That's always been a big issue. One of my last projects is black foldered, but it was all about communications in the field that was truly stealth and truly effective and all the goodness. But it came down to materials in the end. We were working with particular material, and that's what made that communications happen. So I say for the little nerdy scientists out there who are doing things that don't look like a drone or a missile, that's one of them. But even our missiles these days are looking for better materials for the casings, things that can, enhance survivability of the active components. They are all materials in the end of the day. There's a lot of work going on there. You can look at Pillar Two and just say, those are the sexy problems of the day. If I'm in that space at all, that's good. Some people are looking at it and going, I'm going to look at the problem nobody else is looking at. And it's like, that's just as good. The requirements are still out there. Literally, non-rusting paint is a requirement that's out there from the Navy. Shocker. That's kind of what they have to do, especially
I
ones
can't
that
believe they haven't solved that. I'm still surprised. Like, tell me they.
Yeah. So Singleton region, the water here is very, very different. You think about the types of water in the Atlantic Ocean. That's not at all the Indian Ocean or the South China Sea. So there are differences in Mother Nature here in Indo-Pac that are making a really big pushing people really hard to create materials that are going to work in these kind of areas. Anything that has to do with autonomy, we still haven't solved it. And autonomy in denied environments is still has got some work to get done, put it that way. And people are coming up with different ways to do that. They're looking at material additives that can't say too much about it, that can support alternate nav a little bit better. They're looking at using materials to find other materials. So there's a lot of very cluey work going on in those spaces. But it's hard to say if there's one hot thing. It's like whoever's got the most money and has the biggest problem is kind of where a lot of people tend to go to, but your competition's higher. So if it's a need, I point anyone to sam.gov. It's a website. It's America's version of OzTender. If you just put in a word and you can find probably 500 different broad agency announcements or requests for information or request proposal that are sitting out there, and they clearly lay out every single requirement that agency, office, or lab is going for. You can go to the mission statements of any American defense agency, even the little tiny offices. They've got their mission statement on their front page. And so you can be like, okay, what does my stuff fit into there? If that's the agency I want to go after, let me go see what kind of announcements they've got on this tender site and see what kind of requirements they're really looking for. Or you can just do, we have things called push objectives. So in the US side, we love risk. We take risk all the time. I'll fund 10 things and hope one thing works. I'll fund it at 0.1 TRL. It doesn't matter to me because we had money. So there's a lot of technologies that are out there that people aren't aware of. You've got one of those, respond to requests for information, which is your wild idea. Write to, there's a lot of websites where they've got a POC listed. DIU has got their POCs listed at all times. You can just randomly write to people. People have done it, and they'll get a response back about, oh, maybe this should be going over to this agency over here, or you'd have better look, in X, Y, Z. There's a lot of helpful people out there. Or find an expert who knows something about what the America is looking for. Find a military person that's American. They'll tell you everything they need all day long. That's their job. So it's hard to say what's going to be the most valuable place to be in, because it all depends on what's your capability going to do for somebody in the end, and did you get the right person on the right day that's looking for something more akin to your kit than somebody else's kit.
Mm.
That's why you apply to 7 different places at the same time.
Yeah. Going back to the original pointer there, this is a question related to a bit more about maybe career in the space or changing careers or wanting to get involved in defense. So Melissa says somebody doesn't have an idea, but they could be a C-suite of a large organization, because I've met a few who've been interested in stepping into defense, but not really sure where they'd fit or where they'd find out where the opportunities are. So that might be coming in at a management level at one of the early stage companies going through rapid growth. Is there any recommendations that you have there for any career professionals who are looking to step into defense?
This is my favorite thing to say is get a partner in the US.
Okay.
So I funded sorry, Sean, earmuffs. I funded only small biz when I was in government because I funded a prime once. I spent a lot of money and got very, very little out of it. And I had to wait 8 months for them to even start doing work. And I told my friends and they're like, yeah, it's kind of the way it is. I was like, well, I'm done with that. So I did small. So I have hundreds and hundreds of small business owners that I had funded back in the day, or my friends retired and opened up a business. Military does the same all the time. If you're a vet in America, you open a small business, you will get money. It's just
Mm.
the way of the world. It's a good thing. So if you don't really, there are a couple of Australian companies I work with, and they're like, "Oh, we want to try the US, but we don't have much to dedicate to it. Can we be like 5% of a project?" I'm like, absolutely, yes, you can. Get a small business in the US who's interested in either expertise you've got, some little bit of kit that you've got, who knows what it is, but you can be 10% of a larger puzzle. And then American is going to be quite happy to work with you. They're my friends, so I know that they're going to be happy to work with you. But there are also a lot of business to business of programs that are here in Australia. They can help you kind of get an idea of who's out there. So Austrade is one of them that does that. They're linked into a number of different networks in America, so they can at least find you a like for somebody who's in your space, and go off and do that. But the American partner one, there's a nice small, 1,400 people, and now I think it's like $100 million a year, something crazy like that. Their level went up a little bit recently. They're going to be bigger than you for most of the time, but 200 people in an American company is really nothing. That's a very, very small company, just because they're very well fed. They're very fat and happy in America. But they are usually very good at being kind of a Sherpa for you and helping you get through the wickets. And if it's a friend to a friend, do an introduction. It's just like, hey, they want to do like 10%, maybe 5%. They're keen to work, but they don't know anything at all. And
Mm.
and you can people be here to help them and kind of move them along the whole process. And I do that every single day. I'm doing that, in between networking and translation and hand holding. And here, I'll do the first one for you now. The second one is something you can at least try to start doing yourself, and then we'll get you through that whole mess. But there are a lot of opportunities to just get involved just a little bit, and put your toe in the water, kind of an event where you still bring a lot of value to the end state. There's an insane amount of expertise in this country and so many good capabilities that I like pushing them onto my US friends at all times. I just shove it at them and say, please work with this person, or please take this kit into your larger capability. And it gives the Aussie a kind of a safe and easy way to start looking at, how does the US work? Do I like it or not? Had a couple go, oh my God, I'm out. It's like, that's
It's not
fine.
for them.
At least, yeah, at least you tried. That's good on you. But I think it's the easiest way to do that, because you're not doing it by yourself. You're not trying to take on a whole project by yourself. You're not even trying to do more than a handful of percentage of the whole effort, but you're still getting the benefit of a friend, the benefit of insight into how it actually works, and be able to see something from the outside first is much better than try to jump in head first.
Do you have any other recommendations on that, Sean? Anyone looking to sort of move into defence that might not be the idea person, but looking to get involved somewhere, or a bit of a more of a career pivot, I suppose? Yes. I like the framing. Yes. Yeah. Good advice. And look, I get asked a lot. I don't know whether I just get those questions come sort of the non-defense person. I've kind of wondered how I've ended up in this space. Maybe it's a safe person to sort of ask how does that work? And I know there's so many more and there's so many opportunities, whereas other industries, it can go through big changes. It seems defense, there is a lot of demand at the moment, especially for executives in that space, especially startup teams. And I know there's even some founders on the call who have been involved in other industries, grown companies, have now switched their skills and applying them to defense problems, which is what we want to see.
I say it's an easy jump from medicine to defense.
If there's no more questions from the audience, did you have anything else, Sean, that you wanted to either ask Kat or wrap up our discussion? Because I'm aware of everyone's time. I know we kicked off a little bit later, but we've keen to get everyone away on their Friday.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to us moving together as one. I like saying that because it's about time that we really strengthen up the relationship between our industries, and it's people like Sean who are going to help make that happen. So he's diving right in and working horrible hours in the United States to come talk to us here in Australia. So thank you for that, Sean.
And some key takeaways that I wanted to just reiterate here, and that is the elevator pitch is not 60 seconds, it's 30. And you need to go and get tickets to play in this game is key to understand what those tickets are before you can go and play. And it is a game and you need to work out the strategy. The US is looking for no rust paint. That's probably my biggest takeaway. Highly entertaining, but a big problem worth solving. And as Sean said, if you're interested in any sort of career change or pivot, you can always roll up your sleeves and get involved in national security. When it's framed like that, you sort of kind of think, well, why wouldn't I? And if you don't think of it like that, a lot more questions tend to flow after that. So thank you both for the discussion. I know that the comments coming through, they've got a lot of value out of it. This will be put up onto our YouTube channel, so you can share it with anybody who you think is going to benefit from this level of information. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to the next discussion that we get to have on the Breachpoint webinar series.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.